Hello lads, how's it going? So today we're going to have a look at manufactured boards. Okay, so again, we're just going to try and organize our sheet so that we get a lot of information into it. So what I want you to do is create 3 columns and divide that into 3 rows as well. So you're going to end up with 12 boxes, 3 by 3. Okay, so I want to run through this as, I suppose, quickly and efficiently as I can. I have a few videos to show you, all right, so that's going to take up a little bit of time. So to begin with is just the first section over here in the top left-hand corner is what are manufactured boards, okay? So from our time in woodworking in school, you'll have seen lots of solid woods, okay? Lots of planks being cut and planed down to size. So what are manufactured boards? All right, so manufactured boards are large boards which are roughly about 8 feet by 4 foot wide. So they're a large sheet, okay? They're man-made, all right? So they're created in factories, all right? They're not cut directly from trees, all right? They're used as an alternative to solid wood, okay? So just zoom in there a little bit. So they're used as an alternative to solid wood, all right? So solid wood, when it's cut from a tree, you can get varying size of planks, but they're not going to come in large, in too large of, I suppose, widths. All right, so solid boards come in widths of 4 feet. All right, so 4 feet is wider than, if you put your hands out as far as they could go, it's probably wider than that, and they come at a length of 8 feet. All right, so 8 feet. If you think of most of the basketballers, the really big ones, they might be 7 foot or so. So 8 feet is just a little bit more than that. All right. So they're a really large board. All right. They're made using chippings, fibers, and layers of wood. All right. So usually coming from softwood logs. All right. So we know that softwood is a lot more environmentally friendly than hardwood because it grows faster. Okay. And it's a lot more common in Ireland. Okay. It's very common in Ireland. Most of the forest trees around you, especially coniferous ones, the ones that look like Christmas trees, they're all softwoods and they'd be used for these. Okay. They're bonded or kept together using glue. Okay. So the reasons they're used, so that's what they are. The reasons they're used are they're a lot cheaper. They're an awful lot cheaper than solid wood. They are very environmentally friendly because you're using every part of the tree. Okay, so we'll see that later on. But because we're using the chippings and the fibers, the small parts and the big parts, you're using an awful lot of the tree. Like I said earlier, they come in 8 foot by 4 foot sheets, which is a lot larger than solid woods. They are really stable. Okay, so this is a massive one as well. So if you think of solid woods, we discussed how they're hygroscopic, so they expand and they contract when they gain and lose moisture. Okay. If you glue with, say, maybe 6 or 7 solid pieces of timber together, there's going to be a little bit of movement in it, a little bit of shrinkage and things like that. So with manufactured boards, there's no shrinkage or no cupping. It's a very stable product. All right. So if you're doing something which requires large areas of timber, manufactured boards might be a good solution there. Okay, they come in different thicknesses, so ranging from 1/4 of an inch, which is 6 mil, up to 3/4 of an inch to be common, that'd be 18 mil, and you can get them thicker than that as well. Okay, so manufactured boards, lads, while I'm only introducing this now, you've definitely seen manufactured boards in lots of areas. Okay, so we're going to have a look at that in 2 seconds, but the common places will be in your kitchen at home. So your worktops might be manufactured board. Okay, your kitchen presses are more than likely manufactured wood unless they're solid wood. So kitchen doors come in maybe in chipboard, MDF, and in solid wood as well. So there's a good chance your kitchen doors might be manufactured board. Flooring, very common for that to be manufactured wood. It's probably more popular now because, as we discussed with solid wood, there's a lot of movement in it. And again, if you're flooring a large area, you don't want movement in your floor. So manufactured board is a lot better. It's used throughout construction, as in all areas of construction. If you were shelving, all right, so putting shelving into rooms or Last week I was shelving out the back of a van. Okay, so I was using plywood doing that. Furniture, again, if you don't want any movement in the furniture, manufacturer board is a great option. And with the manufacturer board, it can be made to look like solid wood as well. Okay, so we'll have a look at that later on. And things like kitchen tables, those sort of things are often made out of manufactured wood. Okay. All right, so we're just going to have a look at a few examples. Okay. 1 second now, as I'm not sure what I'm showing here. Okay, so have I got a picture here? Yeah. So this is just one example, and hopefully you're seeing this now. Yeah, I think you are. This is one example. Okay, so this is a flooring board. So you can see that there's a solid wood here on the top where my mouse is. All right, and you have the manufacturer board underneath. So this is a plywood underside to the board, and that just makes it a lot more stable. We have a few more examples here. There are different types of manufacturer boards, and the last one I think is a kitchen countertop. Is it? No, it's not. I think there might be a kitchen countertop here somewhere. Yeah, so this is an example here of your kitchen countertop. If it's a laminated board, okay, so this is chipboard and a laminated finish over. So there's a lot of you at home which will have this type of finish on your kitchen. Okay. So we're just going to have a really quick look at different types of manufactured board. Okay, and we'll be doing this in the sheet as well in a few seconds. So there's one here, veneers. That's the one which is similar to what we're looking at the kitchen countertop. There's a solid wood veneer over a softwood timber. Okay, so it's a blockboard in this occasion. We have plywood here, we have OSB, chipboard, MDF, and hardboard. So we're going to look at those in a little bit more detail in 2 seconds. Okay, so this is just the process for creating plywood. Basically, actually no, we'll watch a video about this first. Okay, so we'll just change from where we are here, and we have 2 videos just to have a look at plywood, which is the first manufacturer board, and we have one on chipboard as well. Okay. So these are all American videos now. There was no real Irish companies creating them. So don't get too worried if it's not a Wexford accent.
Hardwood plywood using our award-winning Pure Bond formaldehyde-free technology. Come on in, let's take a look.
Okay, so this is the process, guys. All right. So there are the logs coming in. They're debarked, so that means the bark around the outside of the log is taken off. That will be used in playground and places like that afterwards again, so the whole part of the tree is used. So it's cut into 8-foot length slabs because the sheet is going to be 8 foot in length. So they're putting glue on top of the veneers here, lads, okay? So there's glue on top of it, and a fresh sheet goes in on top of it. So each layer is glued onto the next layer. Okay, lads. So that's the process of how plywood is made. All right. So, I just want to share my screen back to our sheet again. Okay. So the next thing that we want to have a look at is the types of manufactured boards. All right. So plywood is one we just seen. Okay. That's a really common one, probably one of the most common. We have 6 that you should know about. Okay, so plywood is the first one. Blockboard is the second one. We'll have a look at that in a few minutes now. OSB is the third. That's orientated strand board, for anyone that can't read that. The fourth one is MDF. Okay, that's medium density fiberboard. We have chipboard, and finally we have hardboard. Okay, so we're going to have a look at all of these except hardboard, lads. All right. So the first one we want to just write down a little bit about is plywood. All right, so plywood is the one that we just watched a video on. All right, so it's a really common one. There's a few important things about plywood. So the way that it's made, we see in the video that is peeled off in really thin layers. Okay, these layers are called veneers. Okay, so that's the first thing. So it's created using thin veneers of wood. The veneers of wood are glued over each other. So you can see that in this example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of veneer glued over each other, and they're pressed to form a really stable, strong sheet. Okay. When they're glued with the grain going at 90 degrees to the one underneath. So you can see the direction of the grain on the first one is going in the direction of the red arrow here. The direction of the grain in the one underneath is going at 90 degrees to that. Underneath that, again, it's at 90 degrees, and they're all that way so that the sheet remains stable. Okay, so that the forces that may shrink or may move going this direction are opposite to the sheet on top. So that means that it's just going to be a lot stronger. That way it's going to withstand any movement. The last thing with the plywood, lads, it's usually done in an odd number of layers. So for the 6mm plywood, it's often 3 layers. So you have 1, 2, 3 layers. For the 1/2-inch plywood, this is what this one here is. It's often 5 layers and so on. So 3, 5, 7, and it might increase as you look for the thickness to increase. Okay. The reason for that is you want the direction of the grain on the top of the sheet and the direction of the grain bottom of the sheet to be going in the same direction, because again, it's just a little bit more stable. All right. You're not going to have any cupping or any warping if they're going in the same direction. That's the reason for it. All right. So just back in our sheets, we'll just write that information down really quickly. So it's created using veneers. If you're not sure of what a veneer is, you might just write down a little definition of what it is. Okay. It's made using layers with odd numbers. Okay, so just 3, 5, 7. All right, so that'd be a 6mm one, a 1/2-inch, or a 12mm, and a 3/4 inch. All right, so layers of odd numbers. And we had one final thing. So it's laid at 90 degrees to each other. Okay, so 90 degrees to veneer below. Okay, so it's laid at 90 degrees to veneer below. There are 2 different types of plywood. Okay, so the first type is exactly as we've been talking about here. Okay, it's used indoors. Okay, the two different types of plywood are, the difference between them is the glue used or the binding agent used to hold the veneers together. Okay, so the main difference is in price. All right, so if you were using indoor um, or wood for an indoor environment, you'd be picking up the cheaper plywood. Okay, so with just a standard glue in it. If you were using it outside, you'd be using plywood, which is known as WBP. Okay, so that's water and bile proof plywood. All right, so basically it's a different binding agent or a different glue used. Okay, so I'm just going to say waterproof glue to try and simplify it. All right. Okay, that means that when it gets wet, that the layers are not going to unravel and fall apart. They're going to remain together. All right. So if you ever come across plywood outside, which has been exposed to a lot of rain, a lot of dampness, you'll see that, or even if it was left in your lawn or something like that, you'll see that the layers are after coming apart because the glue is not able to withstand the moisture. All right. So the WBP, that's to use outside, and there's also a marine plywood. Okay, again, there's just a really strong binding agent in that, and you can guess by the word marine that it can be used in very wet environments. All right, so that's plywood. Blockboard is one that we use in the woodwork room fairly often. All right, do I have a picture of it here? Yeah, we have a picture in the book. So basically, blockboard is like long narrow lengths of timber which are glued together. Okay, so they would be roughly about 2 inches by an inch, maybe a little bit less. It could be 18 millimeters. So that'd be the size of a 2x1. If I could show you, so 50, that'd be 50 millimeters, guys. Maybe the width of 2 or 3 of your fingers. All right, so it'd be 50 millimeters by anywhere between half an inch up to an inch. All right, and basically they just press these together and they have one layer of glue gluing them onto each other. Okay, the one little point that's important here is that you can see that the direction of the grain is glued opposite to the one that is going on to. Okay, so this one here is turned up and the grain alongside this one here is turned down. That's just again to stop any cupping. So you can imagine if these were all turned the same direction, you'd end up with a big cup in your sheet, just like that. Okay, but when they're turned the opposite directions, they withstand the forces of each other, and it leaves you with a flat, stable sheet. All right, so blockboard, we'll just say, is strips glued together. All right, strips glued together, and the grain on the pieces are opposite to each other. Okay, so hopefully you'll know what that means by the sketch there. Okay, so the grains are butted together. So butted just means that they're pushed together like that, and they're butted together with the grains going in opposite directions. All right, so that's blockboard really simply. And again, if you wanted to get a blockboard with say a mahogany effect or an oak effect, that veneer can be glued onto the top of that. Okay, the next one is pine or lamboard. All right, so we use an awful lot of this in the woodwork room. Okay, so lamboard, you'll see me dragging 8x4 sheets of it around the place. Again, basically that's little thin strips of timber glued together, so it's really similar to blockboard, except there's no finish on it. It's just an exposed softwood timber in the color that's in the book here. And it's again, it's very handy and very good for lots of different types of uses. All right, so you can just maybe just kind of copy the same into this section. And OSB board is the next one. Okay, so OSB board is orientated strand board. Okay, OSB and chipboard are really similar, except orientated strand board, the fibers are a little bit bigger. Okay, And I have a video just to share with you what this looks like, because it's very hard to visualize. All right. Okay, so if we go back to this, there's a lad here not talking crap. I just want to share with you from, this is the same process, lads. It's debarked and it's carried into a mill. It's the same as the plywood, and we're just going to take it up from there. So the wood is after being debarked, so we're going to take it from there.
Strander, where it is precision cut in a ring holding 48 knife assemblies surging at over 2,000 RPMs. We control the strand thickness, width, and length
So these are
to achieve
the
right
strands
properties
used in
for every
OSB board.
product we produce. After being sifted and separated in 20,000 cubic foot wet bins, strands are conveyed to massive dryers. Over 100 feet long, they are capable of drying up to 235,000 pounds per hour at 800 degrees. That's enough OSB to cover 6 football fields. And 2 things you need to know while we're here. One, we've said it before, but every part of the log is used. And 2, state-of-the-art environmental controls help keep the air clean. And that says it all. After drying, the strands are blended with resins and wax. Here, we use special formulations to produce our moisture-resistant subflooring products like DryGuard, with its 180-day no-sand guarantee, and Drymax, with its 300-day no-sand guarantee. From blending, the strands travel to the forming line. Our line uses up to 6 forming heads, allowing us much greater flexibility and capability in how we produce our products. And many other OSB mills have only 4. Resins and forming help determine a board's properties. What most folks don't realize is there is a tremendous amount of wood in every finished board. You see that tall mat of wood strands here? It will end up as one strong and resilient 7/16" finished board. That happens at our massive press, which weighs over 2 million pounds and is almost 15 stories tall. Here, the mats are pressed using up to 7,500 psi and at over 400 degrees Fahrenheit. The process is highly impressive and also highly controlled from a computerized control room that oversees every step in the process, from stranding, blending, and forming to the environmental systems. In our quality assurance lab, our OSB is subjected to...
Okay, lads, so that's basically how OSB is made, okay? So if we go back to the camera, so just to recap on that, OSB is small strands, okay, so really small strands of timber. Every part of the log is used, all right, so very little waste. They're blended together using resins and glue. They're then laid out on the conveyor belt as you've seen. And once they're laid out, they're pressure pressed to make the board, okay? So lots of pressures put down it, the glue goes off, the resins go off, and it stays as a pressurized sheet, and it's then cut into sizes of 8 by 4 foot. Okay, so all these are 8 by 4 foot. All right, so that's OSB. Chipboard is really, really similar, except the strands are smaller for chipboard. So that's why I put the 2 of these together. They're very similar. OSB, the strands are larger. Chipboard, the strands are smaller, and the rest of the process is very similar. Okay, so the last one that we're going to have a look at is MDF. Okay, and the process would be similar to OSB. Okay, but MDF is, the name anyway, lads, is MDF, is medium density fiberboard. Okay, it's small fibers similar to sawdust. So if you were to I suppose compare plywood, chipboard, OSB, and MDF, plywood is veneers, it's like strips of wood. OSB and chipboard is small strands and chips of wood, and MDF is nearly like sawdust. It's really fine material. Okay, so with the MDF, it's small fiber similar to sawdust used. It's a binding agent once again, it's a glue that holds it together. And the main thing with all these lads is that once they're all made, every type of these boards, they can be finished. They can be finished with a solid wood veneer. Okay, so like a mahogany or a hardwood veneer. Okay, so an example would be oak, ash, mahogany, walnut, any type of a hardwood veneer. They can be glued down to the top of all these boards, and then when you're looking at it with naked eye, it looks like it's a solid wood board. All right, until you go maybe do a little bit further research into it. All right, so that's manufactured boards covered, lads. Just again, they're a very stable alternative to solid wood. They're cheaper, they're more environmentally friendly. It uses up all the log, and you get them in different thicknesses, no cupping, no shrinkage. So they have a lot of advantages. All right. So thanks very much, lads, and hopefully you got a little bit from that.